Okay.
Yes, you are.
Okay, excellent. Great. Wow. Okay, success. So,
And
um,
you're recording.
welcome everybody. Yeah, thank you. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to True Self Sovereignty, Mastering Your Internal Domain. And I'm going to start with a couple of beautiful quotes again, this time by Joseph Campbell, one of my very all-time favorite authors. And they're very simple. He says, "We become mature when we become the authority in our own life. And the privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you are." So that kind of says it all, right? Just to kind of re-anchor us into what I talked about last week. Self-sovereignty is the right to live as the authority in your own life. And self-sovereignty is synonymous with self-leadership, for those who might not be as familiar with the language. So the source of all self-sovereignty is our wise guidance, our deep internal guidance. That's the source of self-sovereignty. So we have to be able to access, we have to choose, we have to be intentional about accessing that wise inner guidance to strengthen our self-sovereignty muscle. So there are I'm sure there are many more reasons I could come up with, but I was really feeling into four super important reasons to cultivate self-sovereignty at this point in time in particular. Number one is that at this point in time, without all the diversions and distractions and the ways that, most of us humans fill various voids at different times, all we have is ourselves right now. While all of the detrimental distractions have been removed, so have lots of other forms of nurturance and other forms of fulfillment. And so we're really in a position to rely deeply on ourselves, and um, and that requires a facing deep down and in and down in order to connect. So all we have is ourselves. Number two is that the world needs our unique solutions. That's another reason why self-sovereignty is so important right now, because the world doesn't need the same old solutions. It needs our unique medicine, our unique solutions. And we can only discover and connect and kind of align with what those are by trusting into our self-authority, our self-leadership, our self-sovereignty. The third is that this particular crisis really has leveled the playing field. We're really on our own at this point, in the sense that nobody has the answers. The truth is, nobody has the answers. Even the most brilliant, knowledgeable minds, scientists, doctors, they also are very, quite humbly admitting at this moment they don't really have answers. They're conjecturing, they've got their best guess, they're working hard, but they don't have answers. So everybody is, the level playing field is one of discovery. We are all in discovery together in a big way. And the fourth reason why self-sovereignty is so crucial right now is because it requires us to dive into the deep, true feminine. And again, not gender specific, feminine characteristics exist in everyone, but it requires us to, sovereignty is about deep self-connection. It's about diving into the mystery. It's about curiosity and discovery, and not knowing, but discovering, being open to discovery. All of those are part of the feminine. And so, like the Dalai Lama said, that Western women will be the ones to change, to save the world, I believe he said. I hope I got that right. I believe that's what he said. Um, and so those strengths and gifts that are needed in order for that to happen will we also require this sovereign self-connection. So what happens if we don't do this? What would happen if we don't go in those directions I just described? Suffering is number one, because without all of our distractions and all of the just the rat race, really, the busyness, like the kind of, jumping to respond to this message and that message about who we should be, and what we should be doing. And even just the busyness of regular life when we get to see people, although we miss that so much. If we weren't diving into those deep, beautiful, limitless waters within, we'd probably be pretty uncomfortable right now. And some people are. If we don't cultivate our self-sovereignty, we'll also be kind of left to bump into that internal void. It's kind of what I just said, but a little bit of a different angle. Bump it hard into that internal void that exists within everybody. You know, we all have a certain level of kind of loneliness, and it's part of the human condition, right? Another thing that would happen is that we would just, people have already burned out from following everybody else's shoulds, but it's just intolerable at this time. You know, there's such a beautiful, open, clear field that is just beckoning us, begging us to align more deeply with ourselves. And so if we choose to kind of keep looking to others and keep trying to be someone we're not and letting others define us, again, it's just going to end up being a source of great dissatisfaction. And the last very important component to what happens if we don't cultivate our self-sovereignty is that we deny the world our unique medicine, which it so desperately needs now. So if ever there was an opportunity to give deeply to ourselves and have that convert very organically into the highest level of service and the highest level of gifting others in the world, it's now. So because the field is so clear, because to a great degree, a lot of hustle and bustle has ceased. As I said last time, the same way that we can now see the skyline in a lot of cities or the mountain range in a lot of places, the Himalayas and you know, the sky in LA. And it's also easier to access our deeper truth because we've got this clear field. So some of the things that get in the way of accessing this deeper truth are that we fear, and these are what I would call shadows, sort of shadowy narratives. So we fear that if we let go and drop down deep into ourselves in the way that I'm describing, that we might lose control, you know, over our businesses. We might lose complete control over our relationships or over our finances. We think that maybe, you know, we're still sort of maybe feeling some pressure from the marketplace that, you know, this sort of, there's sort of a new race emerging that some of us are feeling exposed to, where we feel like, you know, the quicker you can redefine, the quicker you can reposition your message, and the quicker you can redefine yourself, the more likely you're going to be successful. And if you don't do it overnight, you might lose out. That's a completely false belief. Another is that the fear that if we trust our inner guidance, it will steer us wrong and we might feel ashamed. We might feel stupid. We might feel silly if we just really allow ourselves to be guided deeply from within. And I'm just going to go back for a moment to this, the one that I just mentioned about this idea of feeling like if we don't reposition ourselves instantaneously, that we're going to fail, that we're going to miss out on a new type of success. The kind of success that it is that we're living into a real fertile field to cultivate right now is the kind that comes from a very deep, organic place of really birthing, of gestation from within. And everyone's timing is unique when it comes to this kind of deeply authentic change cycle, this deeply authentic sort of dying to what is old and carrying, you know, the seeds of what is new and allowing them to kind of grow and begin blossoming in their own time. Everyone's timing is different. This is, if anything, this is not a time where one can really force a quick turnaround. So at the same time, there's a tremendous amount of powerful transformation happening organically for people. And so it's a very, very fine line between honoring the stillness and the kind of regrouping and the kind of, connoitering and coordinating that's happening organically within, and noticing that fine line between that and hesitating to take action because of a lack of self-trust. So we do need to be taking action, or to begin taking action, but we want it to be born of that deep self-connection that we're talking about when we talk about self-sovereignty. So another shadowy belief that might be getting in the way is this fear of standing out from the crowd. Because if we're talking about honoring our unique medicine and really showing up in a way that's just sort of an expression of our essential self, then it's not going to look like anybody else. It's probably not going to be just like anybody else, including your mentor, including your coach. And so there's a little bit of a fear of whether that will be well received, or whether that will be seen or heard. And that sort of funnels into this deeper fear of trusting our own inner authority, trusting that sovereign voice within. Some people also have a fear of betraying somebody else if they are deeply true to themselves, right? That somehow they're going to either alienate somebody, threaten somebody, leave somebody behind. And the truth is that claiming our authority for our own life and living from that place of self-sovereignty is a profound act of self-love. I'm going to say that again. Living from that deeper truth, from that place of self-sovereignty and deep self-connection and deep wise guidance, is a profound act of self-love. The reason it's a profound act of self-love is because, number one, we stop holding other people responsible for the way that we experience or navigate our lives. We take the pressure off. We let everybody else off the hook, and we take 100% responsibility for using every life experience as an asset, as a big deposit in the reserve, in our internal reserve. When we claim that level, that profound level, that radical level of responsibility, we become more innovative, we become more creative, more generative. And we actually just very naturally activate our highest potential to serve others, ultimately, because we're serving ourselves so deeply and lovingly. And all of this fortifies our resilience immensely. So how we do this in terms of becoming more masterful over our internal domain in all of the ways I've just talked about, we make a decision. We make a conscious choice, a very intentional decision. And that decision includes a whole sort of mindset and set of beliefs. And the first is that we understand that things will not be the same. They will not be the same for us, and they will not be the same in the world. And so with that understanding, we have a choice. We're either going to become greater, more expanded, more authentic versions of what we were really made to be in this life, what we were really meant to be, or we're going to become smaller. We're going to shrink and crystallize in our fear and dissatisfaction. There really isn't any, I don't believe there is any neutral ground. I never have really believed that. I think we're either expanding and growing, or we're becoming smaller and more contracted. So you make an intentional choice for the former. You choose, you say, well, this is tough. It's not what I expected, but I'm going to choose to allow this to transform me. I'm going to seek meaningful lessons in all of these difficulties. I'm going to really look for them. I'm going to trust deeply that there are some very unique and special gifts inherent in this amazingly wild change that we're navigating. And I'm going to find them for me. I'm going to find my gifts within this. The very act of understanding that your response to the very act of responding in the way that I just described will not only transform you, but our choice to respond in a really beautiful, trusting, expansive, sort of faith-based, even if you're not spiritual, faith in the goodness, faith that life always has our back, that there's always something meaningful to learn. There's always something, another growth step, another expansion. That kind of faith is what will ultimately, that in our response, is ultimately what will change the world. One human being at a time, responding with love, self-compassion, compassion for others, and a commitment to their deepest truth is what will ultimately change the world. We don't need to think as much about changing the world as we need to think about presencing ourselves at this deep level of self-leadership. Resilience involves self-directed learning, and so all of these things that I'm mentioning, so we are wired to grow and evolve. Resilience psychology and neuroscience has completely confirmed that we are wired to grow and evolve through challenge and change and loss, but that it does have to be self-directed. So the kinds of things I'm talking about are parts of how you self-direct. And it's going to be different for a little bit different. For each person's resilience recipe will be unique because you're learning your resilience from the inside out. So mine will be different than yours, for example. So we also become the master of our internal domain by approaching our challenges with a beginner's mind. So there's a distinction between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is what we already know. It's how we've already been living. It's the paradigm that we've already been living in. Wisdom is what occurs through those, that when we dive deep into the mystery and we start to really live into what we don't yet know. And we start to kind of notice what is arising moment to moment, right? Insights, little gifts, little glimmers of something really special that could not have existed had this hardship not occurred. So we want to live into that beginner's mind, because again, the truth is that nobody knows very much right now. Nobody has the answers right now. And so that also levels the playing field in terms of, the way that a lot of us have kind of looked for that guru, looked for that one special person who we were going to turn all of our authority over to, because they seemed to know more than we did, and we trusted them more than ourselves. While there's a tremendous amount of important information that we need to be paying attention to, everybody is also living into this discovery together and living in curiosity. So another important component is to stop trying to know. This is something that it's the nature of the mind. We want to know, right? Because it gives us a sense of control. And so this compulsion to keep trying to know is another protector that really seals us off from the beauty of what can be experienced during wild change. So just like I mentioned in the first video on self-sovereignty, in the sense that we can create our own economy, that our success, our ability to flourish and grow is not dependent upon the external circumstances we're navigating, including the economy. We can create our own newsreel internally inside of ourselves. It's important to be watching the news to whatever degree works for you, so that you're up on all the important information we all need to know to stay safe and healthy. And it's also important to know what your boundaries are, and to be creating your own new highlight reel internally. And what I mean by that is to be in a position where you're focusing heavily on the meanings that you're assigning this time, what the meaning that you're making of this time, and focusing on that newsreel, those tunes, those repetitive tunes, the meaning, the deeper meaning that you know darn well this time is about for you. Because almost every soul led woman that I know right now is, to varying degrees on the continuum, in touch with the fact that there's something really amazing about this time. And some of the people in my community are very clear about what that is, and some aren't quite as clear, but they are in touch with that sense that beneath the fear, beneath the disturbance and all the concerns, there's something that might be pretty amazing and pretty great going on here too. So that's the newsreel I'm talking about. That's your newsreel. Not talking about putting on blinders, of course. So, and of course, we do have to be careful about the way that the media, although there are many devastating stories, we also have to be careful about the way that certain things are sensationalized, and just kind of be discerning to whatever degree we can. So, as I said, everybody's resilience recipe is going to be somewhat unique, and it's because it is a from the inside out job. And so I want to just give you a little assignment this time, and that is to journal your thoughts and your beliefs about the deeper meaning and significance of this time for you in terms of your life purpose, your calling, your soul's calling, your business. And really, begin to journal about your meanings, really identify them, really allow yourself to assign your own meanings to this. It's really important. And so, as always, we're going to end with a little practice, and before we say goodbye for today. You can go ahead and you can put your hand, you can close your eyes and put your hands on your body, either on the cheeks of your face, your heart, or your solar plexus, wherever they feel like they want to be. Yeah. And just pull all your senses inside now. You've been listening to me and you've been in your day so far. Just pull your senses all right inside your own body now. Just give yourself permission to pull in and notice your breathing without trying to change it. And as always, feel the warmth generated by your own touch, and allow that to allow yourself to really melt into that as a source of great comfort. Sense of safety, a sense of connectedness and nurturance. And in this place, we can ask ourselves any number of questions that can take us out of our head and deep into our soul, into our hearts, and invite in new information, new discoveries. And so for today, the question I would offer you is internally to ask, what do I need to know? What do I need to know right now? And if you hear a response, you might ask, what else do I need to know? And whenever you're ready, you can just thank yourself internally for whatever gifts were provided. And we can open our eyes and come back together. Okay. So I'm just going to invite everybody I don't think I can, for some reason, I can't unmute you. Yes, you can unmute selves, and we can just connect just for a moment before we say goodbye for today. So any shares, questions, anything?
I love that meditation that we just did. It felt like what you were talking about earlier, where it felt like self-love, like self-nurturing.
Yeah,
So that was nice. Thank you. I'm going to practice that.
yeah. It triggers, so that hands-on body and the warmth that's generated triggers oxytocin in the brain, which is the
Mm.
chemical that's responsible for connection and safety and nurturance. And so that's why that's such a powerful place to start, because it's almost like you're creating a sacred space for your wisdom to come through then. It's almost sort of like
Yeah.
lighting a candle, or, you're creating your internal environment.
Well, I felt that, and it was so easy. Whereas many times, like I feel like it made me realize, like many times when I'm asking my wisdom, it always feels like it often feels like it's outside of myself, and then I try hard,
Yeah,
So that's yeah. So thank
yeah,
you for that.
yeah, sure, absolutely. Anything, Jean?
Well, yeah, it was very positive for me, and I've done this with you before, and it's a wonderful tool that you have shared that helps me to come inside and to, that just find those answers. And I did have some things come up, so I
Yeah,
thank you for that.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Can
Yeah,
you talk just a little bit more about the journaling homework?
sure.
About the thoughts or beliefs about the meanings. Could
Yeah,
you have a
sure.
moment for that?
Sure, sure, absolutely. Um, so I guess my intention for that would be that so we're surrounded by all kinds of all kinds of beliefs and perspectives on this crisis that we're navigating,
Mm,
right? And so some of this is factual, and some of what and then we're also experiencing the interpretation and the perspective that people are living in about what's happening,
mm-hmm.
about the factual information. So what I'm encouraging is that you would journal about the meaning that this time has for you, the meanings that you're assigning to it.
Okay.
And if some of them are consistent with the meaning that other people are assigning, that's great,
Mm,
as long as they're also your deeper sense of what this time really holds for you and for others, so it's like your meanings.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that's very helpful.
yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's part of how it's like that's the beginning of connecting with that inner compass of our own.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of self-sovereignty. If we don't
Mm-hmm.
even know what what kind of meaning a time like this has for us, then we can't take action from our own meanings, from our own,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But when we do know, we can, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. Okay, you guys, great to be with you. And
Thank you, Michelle.
yeah, you're so
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. It's wonderful to see both of you. And I'll see you both really soon.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
lots of love.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.